We've got a huge selection of people from the film, so without further ado, let's introduce, first of all, director Owen Harris, writer John Niven of the original book and the screenplay, and stars of the film Ed Skrein, Craig Roberts and Nicholas Hoult. Woo! Someone was actually going whoop whoop there. Did you hear them? That's amazing. Pick a seat, any seat. Oh, come on, I don't smell that bad. Thanks, Craig.
I'll hide at the end.
Thank you. Congratulations, gents. I'm going to start at the far end at John, if that's all right, because this is your story.
Hello, I'm John.
This was your book, and I guess there was no question about you writing the screenplay. It had to be you that wrote it, didn't it?
Well, actually, there were lots of questions about that, and rightfully so. But no, I'm very glad that I did, and I was very lucky to have a collaborator like Owen, who was very patient. Because I don't know, anyone who's read the book or seen the film, did you guys see the trailer? Okay. It's as you can tell, it's an upbeat, happy romance about the best things in humanity. So it was important to preserve that in the script.
Shall we show them the trailer again right now?
Thank you.
Owen, when you kind of started with this, did you have a kind of a really clear mind in terms of, obviously you have the script to go by, but in terms of, I guess, the kind of tone of the film that you were filming in a way? Do you know what I mean? In terms of that darkness, but the humour and kind of maintaining both to a level.
Yeah, I think John's book was a cult classic. It is a cult classic and it was what attracted, I think, all of us to the film. And it's written in the first person, and you read it through the eyes and the language of Stephen Stelfox. So the challenge for me was to make a film that felt like Stephen Stelfox. So just the way it looked, the attitude of it, I was trying to make you feel like this whole film was his persona. So that was my sort of key into it, really.
And kind of the whole kind of the notion of the music in it, which is such an important part. It's the world that it's set in, but there's a lot of music in it and stuff. Was that an easy thing to weave it in as well?
In a way, it's what makes this such an exciting project, because it was an opportunity to make a film about the music industry that had this very authentic voice, and but yeah, finding the tracks to complement it, it was tricky. I started out thinking that I would try and be a bit more obscure with the music, and in the end, for me, the way in was Radiohead's Karma Police, which in the film is used in quite an ironic way, where basically Nick's character has a very narcissistic, sort of self-absorbed moment of self-reflection whilst listening to Karma Police and the bad karma, and that was how I used lots of the hits in the film in quite an ironic way, I hoped.
From watching the film, yes, you did. From watching it, it just looked like you had a right laugh making it, to be honest. It looked like...
It was a nightmare.
It was obviously hard work for your actors, but it looked like an easy time, or would that be a wrong assumption? Craig?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Careful, because he gets really angry if you...
Oh, no.
Yeah, thanks. It was a lot of fun. It was like I spent most of the time in a club, and in real life, I'm rejected from most clubs, so it felt fine to do, and just to pretend to be on drugs. That was great.
You were pretending?
Let's talk about Stelfox, shall we, Nicholas? Because he's not a very nice person. He's your creation, John. You brought him to life, Nicholas. What was the relationship between you and John and Owen in terms of bringing him to life? What were the kind of discussions that you had about him?
Over to you.
What Owen kind of touched upon earlier in terms of having the book as kind of a Bible for his inner monologue throughout every scene basically was a great thing to have, because his opinion on every character and every scenario that he's going through. You can hear that running through your brain. So no matter which character I was in with a scene, I could hear that. And that also made it very difficult for me, because the way John writes is so observant and destroys. It's a character assassination of a lot of people. So I'd see these actors and bringing these characters to life brilliantly, but then in my mind be absolutely destroying them. So it was kind of this weird thing where I'd end up corpsing quite a lot because of that, because it was funny how you write. And then Owen, when I first read the script, Owen wasn't attached to direct, and I kind of wasn't sure on what the tone of the project would be. And then like a year or so later, I read it again, and Gregor, the producer, came up to me and said that Owen was attached, and I loved his Black Mirror episode, and I knew that then it was in the hands of somebody smart who could tread that fine line of keeping it
No
twisted.
longer in my hands.
Yeah, because you'd go off the rails, mate. The second he gets a bit of power, it's all over for everyone. So then I knew it was in the safe hands of keeping it twisted and dark, but also those moments of humour in a really convoluted way.
Did you enjoy playing a character that really has no boundaries, really, does he, in terms of his behaviour, his kind of reaction to people?
Nick said to me an interesting thing when he was reading the script and the book quite a lot in the run-up to filming, that his inner monologue of his own head got so corrupted by Stelfox. He'd be in a sort of public place and he'd just be thinking. He said, this really happened a lot in the Tube. And I went, yeah, that tube's not a very Stelfox environment.
It really wasn't. I remember being on the tube and like going down the escalator and glancing over occasionally, and I'd see someone, and like Stelfox's opinion of that person would run through my head quickly, and I'd be like, oh, mate, calm down. It's a bit extreme.
I'm sorry to have put you there.
Please tell us he's not still in your head now.
No.
It's just the cast in it as well, and I guess, Ed, I want to ask you about your character as well, because from working in the music industry for a number of years, I mean, I could relate to so much of it and kind of going, oh my God, yeah, I know that person, or who that person's like, sort of thing. Did you, I guess for all of you, did you spend any time within the industry around people or observing, or was it kind of all there on the page and kind of just speaking with John about it and stuff? Ed, what about you for first?
I mean, I'd say for me that, you know, the parallels that I would draw are in the industry that I'm currently in now.
Yeah.
You know, I think we have a certain level of shameless...
Go on, you can say it.
Shameless ambition and debauchery and deceit and fake smiles, that you see in this industry that that was so easy to draw upon for John's horrible world that he's created.
Craig,
John's Horrible World was the working title for the film.
That's your biography, innit?
I mean, Craig, I know at least half a dozen Darrens.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel so sorry for Darren, because like, yeah, he genuinely probably, he does genuinely love music and wants to find the next cool band or artist, and he's just in a snake pit. It's a bunch of bloody ants.
We're going to open this out to our audience as well. So please think of questions now, and we'll start doing audience questions in just a couple of minutes. Don't leave it to that thing where you go, okay, last question, and everybody puts their hand up. So get in there at the start and ask questions from any of our guys tonight, sort of thing. So I'll just give you a little bit of a warning about that. In terms of the shooting locations and stuff, where did you kind of how did you decide on on where and how you kind of shot it in terms of, and also just in terms of how much extra was shot that didn't make it in the film?
Do you know, I mean, fortunately, it was an incredibly economic shoot because the budget was so tight.
Yeah.
That I think only one scene didn't make it into the film.
Wow.
No, what sex scene? I wasn't there when you had a sex scene. Oh yeah, no, of course. Sorry, two scenes.
What was the sex scene?
You
had sex with who? With what?
I found it one of the most amusing scenes to shoot and one of the most amusing scenes to read when I read the book of my characters having sex with his assistant secretary, Rebecca, played by Georgia King. And the dilemma he finds himself in is that he's used up all his dirty talk and runs out, so then proceeds to call her an idiot. Which, even though much of the things he's been saying before then were way more derogatory, she gets offended by him calling her an idiot. So there's a brief pause where he gets scolded for it, and then remains and then continues and returns to his original form of sexy talk.
And that was one of the very few bits in the novel that came absolutely from a real life story that sort of friend told me. And when he read it in the novel, he went, "I can't believe you put that in there." And then it nearly made the final cut of the movie. It was kind of in the film for a while, wasn't it? And then for various reasons we had to lose it. And he was like, "Oh, thank God."
How much, going back to the novel then, with you saying that, how much of what's in that original novel is real?
There's only maybe a handful of moments that were taken from life, because if a book works properly, if a novel's fully alive, you can't just stick real people and real things in it. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So, but the number of times I've had people in the music business come up to me and go, "Oh yeah, that scene in the city, that I remember being at that," and I'm thinking, I completely made that up. It never happened. But, you know, if you're convinced you're there, good. Enjoy. Have fun.
Yeah, it is funny though how real it feels when you read it. And
we lived in those trenches, Edith. We knew it.
I still do. Right, let's get some audience questions then. Who has a question for any of our panel tonight? Are you putting your hand up or are you just filming at the back there? I think you're just filming. There's a gentleman there. Hello, there's a microphone to your right. If you grab that, then we can hear you.
Hi. My question is, you've got characters like Patrick Bateman, Gordon Gekko, and even real-life ones like Jordan Belfort from Wolf of Wall Street. They all seem to get idolised a lot, rightly or wrongly. Do you think this will happen with Stelfox? Are you happy about it, if he does?
Can I answer that? No, I just, for me, I think it's quite important that, I think that if you make a film, it's a piece of entertainment. And I think you can very easily start to think that we're celebrating these characters. And I think ultimately this is a satire about a certain culture, and certainly the music industry sort of polarizes a certain type of culture where ambition is gains supremacy over talent, and it's fear. It's fueled by fear. And the character of Stelfox is meant to take you on a journey, and you want to entertain people with that, but we're not celebrating these characters. We're using them to shine a light on a certain culture that is prevalent even today, even though this was set in the 90s.
But I think it's a very good question, because I think the Jordan Belfort thing, what happens is, even though you're satirising something, it's very hard to take the glamour out of certain things. And the movie does show a lot of people in their 20s drinking champagne and doing drugs and going bananas in nightclubs. And it's quite hard to make that look like a morality play all the time. So you have to just kind of show it and then let the audience find their own relationship to it. But with the music industry, I get so many people come up to me and say, "You're Stelfox, legend." He's like, when the book came out, I heard stories of an A&R guy who had bought like 50 copies and he was signing them in his office and giving them to bands saying, "This is based on me." And you're like,
No.
"Are you out your mind? Have you read this? It's literally Satan." And you're going, "Yeah, I'm Satan." But you get that, and you can't help that. Some people, all you're lovely, intelligent people, but there's a lot of fucking morons out there. So it's difficult.
Next question. Okay, we got a couple. So if you can just get the mic. I can hardly see. There we go.
Yeah,
Hello?
for Nick. In the scene where you kind of beat up James Corden, what's it like to beat up a nice guy?
Depends what you consider a nice guy, really, doesn't it? No, it was that was a lot of fun. The murdering scenes were some of my favourite, actually, both with James and Georgia, it was well executed and kind of came about in such a random way, like that twisted humour of bashing someone's head and at the same time explaining to them that Paul Weller is primarily known as a singer-songwriter. Because it's that frustrating. It's obviously the fear of him losing the promotion which he needs and all those things, and having a dimwit as his boss who knows nothing about music, but also just the utter frustration of it all, and also then killing his dog at the same time. And James was a really good sport about it, and with everything that we did to him, pretending to urinate on him, making him dance around and eat Seal CDs. It was a lot of fun, and he brought that character to life in a fantastic way.
Next question, please. Lady by there.
Hi. As a director and as actors, what pushes you or what drives you to take on a movie?
Certainly with the, I mean, this is, I mean, one of the other big attractions for me for a film like this is that you know it's going to be a challenge. Just tonally, it's different. You're trying to tell a story in an almost, it's a very unconventional story, having an anti-hero that is going to take you on this journey. So I'm always drawn to a challenge, this sort of a challenge. And certainly when I read the book, I thought, what a great opportunity to make a film about music, with this very authentic voice, but ultimately the biggest buzz for me that kept me on my toes was the fact that I knew I was taking on a story that was going to be challenging to pull off in terms of a conventional way of how you expect a film to unfold, I guess, and the character that you're following. So that was the excitement for me.
What about for you, three's actors? What was the...
I think, I think it's unique for a British film. It feels like a movie, which I think is complete escapism. And you know, in the UK, we're very good at telling social realism stories and period dramas, and this I think fits into a mold of pure entertainment and movie. And I think that was kind of appealing, and it was just bloody good script.
Kind of what Craig just said. Seeing the trailer again for the first time in a while. I mean, as Owen said, we made it in a very tight budget, but it doesn't look like a tiny little grim indie film. I don't know if you agree, but it looks like quite a glitzy, high-powered film, you know. And we managed to go to New York and Cannes within that budget, so it's all on the screen, they say.
Ed, what about for you? In terms of taking on this particular role, yeah. And I guess kind of roles in general, what you kind of look for, what's the thing?
Every role is different. I mean, obviously, the sort of boring answer is looking for something that's challenging and something that's going to help
Sorry
me.
about that.
And something that's going to help me grow as an actor.
Yeah.
But, you know, something like this is different because this is something that I already loved. This was already my favourite book before I even knew they were making a movie about it. And so this meant something to me, you know, and so there was an equal feeling of excitement of being part of something that I really care about and sort of worry that it might not be represented in the right possible way, but we have John fucking Niven. So I knew it would be fine because he wrote the screenplay, and you know we're in safe hands. And
God, it's all my fault.
yes, I blame it on John.
Nicholas, what about for you? Were there any kind of, I don't know, not fears, but you know, in terms of taking on this character, who it's a different type of role for you, but I guess that's part of the appeal for roles, isn't it? Is it being something different and challenging you, and it showing a diversity of...
Yeah, completely. That's the thing. I'm always trying to do very varied types of films and characters, and this seemed like a risky one. And when there's a risky one around, I kind of get excited about it. And particularly, and then we had a brief moment of rehearsal, me and Owen, before we started shooting, and as I was trying to understand Stell Fox, I threw out some bad actor ideas of like, well, yeah, but why is he like this? And you know, most of the time in films like this, there's a morality tale at the end of it and a redemptive moment for the character, or you find some sort of flashback in terms of like, oh, this is the way why he is the way he is. And I think kudos to Owen and John and the producers in terms of making a bold movie where there really isn't that comeuppance for the character. It's just a look at this moment in time, and also the fact that it is a music industry movie, but not about the creative aspects or not a biopic. A look at the sordid behind the scenes of it all intrigued me because, you know, the music industry is celebrated a lot in terms of its creativity, but not so much in terms of the ruthless business behind
the dark side.
Well, I think Nick's dead right. And when we were developing the movie and trying to get it made, we did get pressure here and there to have Stell Fox get his comeuppance and be punished. Sorry, no spoilers here, but he doesn't. And the thing is, in an industry like the music business, what happens is the really nice guys, the good guys who really love music, end up running One Hunchback Man records in Inverness out of their garden shed. And the demons, the monsters, run Warner Brothers and Sony and Live Nation and make billions. So to have this movie where the bad guy ended up chastised and punished, are you crazy? It couldn't be like that, you know?
Couldn't be anything else. Next question. There we go. Wait for the microphone or we can't hear you. There, it's behind you.
John, you clearly have experience of the music industry. What advice would you give to someone who is perhaps considering embarking on a career in the music industry?
Fuck off. No, sorry, that's a quote from the movie. The great thing is there's this whole chapter in the book where Stealth Fox goes through, and Nick does a version of this in the movie, where if you're signed to a record company, here's what's probably going to happen to you. You're probably going to get a badly recorded album made really quickly, and it'll be so late before it comes out that nobody's going to buy it, and then you get dropped, and you'll end up working in a building site up north, and you'll die when you're about 55 through back-breaking northern labour and lung cancer. Good night. And I do this thing it goes on a little longer and a little more eloquently than that, but I'll do this at readings, and you get kids from bands coming up to you and going, I really enjoyed your reading, man. I'm in a band. And you look at them going, did you hear the reading? And the great thing is, it doesn't dent the enthusiasm, because if you're going to be an actor or a musician or a writer or a filmmaker, you have to believe you're that one little grain of sand at the top of the pyramid who's going to make it against all sane odds. And if you don't believe that, fuck off. So you can't dent that enthusiasm, nor would I want to. But the book and the movie are very clear on the odds, shall we say.
You need to do more talks in schools, John.
So in short, stick in.
Next question. Have we got more questions from our audience? Did I see one up there? Yep, gentleman there.
Hi, John again. From what I know of the film, the character of Rebecca is slightly different from the book, in that she's more ruthless rather than the fool guy that she is in the novel. What inspired that change?
That's a very good point. And it was because if I could have gone back and changed one thing about the novel, in the novel, for those of you who don't know, Rebecca's sort of motivation is she's in love with Stealth Fox. And with a movie, with a novel, there are many characters and lots of time to spend and things. But with the film, Rebecca was the only really significant female role. So it just felt a bit weak to make her, she's in love with him. If she's going to be the only kind of important female character, then we wanted to make her almost as ruthless and ambitious and cunning which she nearly is. She's the only one, isn't she, who nearly gets it over on you in the movie. But, with disastrous results for her. But it was just one of those things you have to make choices, and there's only so many roles, you sometimes have to give them a bit more than they got in the novel.
Do you think it was easier because it's your novel writing the screenplay, or harder?
I think I have a great detachment about my work, and that I've written the book, and the book exists intact, and nothing we can do will alter that, really. And some of my favourite movies have terrible films made of them, and it still doesn't damage the book. So I approach it as in, let's just tear it up and start again, and it's when you're working with extremely talented actors like these guys and the filmmaker like Owen, you have to let them have their head too. It's not just all about you. That's why I'm sure everybody sitting here has been involved in a lot of films, and the one thing you get as you make more movies is whenever you see a bad movie, you think, God, nobody ever wants to make a bad movie. It's just so hard to make a good movie because so many things have to work: cast, production, direction, studio. It all has to come together at the same time, and it's really tough. Nobody sets out to make Sex Lives of the Potato Men. Everybody sets out to make Chinatown or Close Encounters or Jaws, and sometimes you end up with not that.
How difficult was it to get this film made, or how easy was it to get this film made? Owen?
It was really difficult to get this film made. I think actually coining one of your phrases, John. I'll speak because you can have a glass of water. But John always described it as if this was a film about if this was a romantic comedy starring Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, it still would have been quite difficult to get made. And it's the opposite of that. And we went through quite a long journey just in terms of development, people challenging the concept of it and the idea of this character. One of our partners pulled out at the last minute, so we went back a year. And it just, it's a real testament to the sort of the perseverance of people like Gregor Cameron, Will Clark, the producers that are involved in it, that it got made, really, because it's one of those, in the film, I think Nick has a line where it says, it's actually easier not to sign bands. Signing bands can literally cost you your job. And it's the same with the movie industry. It's actually easier not to make a film. It's easy to say no to films, and it's much more difficult to get behind a film and get it made, and it was definitely the case with this.
Another similarity with the film world, with the whole story as well. There's a fine line, isn't there, to this whole theme. Any more questions from our audience? Great, my turn again. Craig, I want to talk about kind of you all kind of crossing different things, because Craig, obviously you had your film out not recently, just Jim, so you kind of are in that world as well of making a film and writing. Nicholas, I noticed you're an executive producer on this film as well. What does that mean?
It's the boss.
Still
He's in
working it
charge.
out, to be honest with you. No one's told me I'm doing a bad job at doing that yet, so I figure I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
But do you think it helps? I mean, I guess this is a question for you, Craig, first of all, of kind of having experience across different channels within the industry to have an understanding of, A, how difficult it is to get a film made as well.
Yeah, it's. It really, especially here, like we just don't have enough money to make films, or make what we want to make, I suppose. And it's so driven. I suppose like the music industry is driven by what names you have attached and all this stuff. It never really depends. Never really boils down to actually the material. It's what it will become, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, I think
You're agreeing, basically.
Yeah.
What you realise is that it's like gambling. You start out with with a material and creativity and everything, but you realise that once money gets involved, it literally is a bunch of people having a flutter on a horse. What's the ground like? What's the horse? Who's the rider? And it literally becomes that basic. And if your rider falls off or gets injured or isn't available, then the whole thing falls apart. Or if it rains, then the horse isn't going to be the same. And it becomes that really that basic, and that's why films. There are so many films that are about to be made, and very few that are actually being made. I think so.
The American producer Linda Obst had a great analogy for getting a movie made, because you have to have money, director, cast, studio. Okay, all these things have to come good at exactly the same moment. So she said, making a movie is like you have to shoot an arrow at a target at the end of a hallway, but as you fire the arrow, 10 paper targets are going to come out from the walls with a hole in the middle of them, and they're all going to line up for exactly 3 seconds, and you have to shoot the arrow through all the holes and into the bullseye. And that's how hard it is to get a film made. You have to,
That made my brain hurt. Just
I also think that's why it is important when we do get the chance to make a film that it is challenging, and and it's the same with like the end of this movie, that there is no result. I think that's good, and I think that challenging people is and people like movies like Under the Skin, exist and stuff. Like I think that's really healthy. And did you actually have did you have a scenario in which he would be resolved?
For the movie?
Yeah, for the movie. Because you said you had pressure for Sel Fox to have redemption. Did you actually have a scenario?
No, you know what? We never really... Because with such great producers, Will and Gregor, they just assured me, don't worry. I was lucky they kept me out of so many of those discussions that I'm sure I would have gone fucking berserk if I'd... They only told me about some of them after we'd wrapped shooting. But apparently at one point an American financier was going to come on board if we got Hugh Grant to play Stel Fox. The 55-year-old Hugh Grant playing the 26-year-old Stephen at 4 grams in a funeral, as Gregor joked at the time. But, you hear these stories and you're like, what are these people smoking? Can I get some? To answer your question, Craig, because I never really was in a situation where I had to seriously consider an alternative ending, So, I don't know, maybe he married Rebecca and it ends with her pregnant and they're cooking some pasta. I don't know.
And then it's actually Darren's baby.
No, it's Ed's baby.
You must feel really chuffed as well, the fact that, you've got all this amazing music in the film as well, and all these incredible artists were like, yeah, we want you to have the music in the film sort of thing. That must make, not that you need it, but in terms of kind of going belief from people who are in the industry that the film's about.
I think we did need it, actually. I think it would have been really shit without it. But the most ironic thing about this film is one of the biggest supporters of this film and one of the book. Some of the biggest fans of the book have been the music industry. I mean, it's quite weird. And we were very lucky that we had Warner Music that came on board with us. But ultimately, it was just the artists agreeing to let us use their tracks. It wasn't the fact we had a budget that could afford all this music. There was a lot of, I don't know, there were lots of fans of this book because I think that no matter how dark or unpleasant Stephen Stelfox is, the one very interesting thing about him is in amongst all the other horrible stuff he's saying, he's actually telling the truth. And I think that artists actually like the fact that finally there's a film about the reality of what an industry which is meant to be very much about talent and creativity that is basically a very cutthroat factory of a business, really.
And aside from the real songs that are in the movie, there was also the songs that had to be made up for the girl band.
The German dance
the Songbirds.
track.
There's a
Please
German
tell me
dance
that's
track
been released.
called,
it is being released, yeah.
Is it? Amazing.
it's a classic called "Suck My Dick." And then there's also and the Lazies, and so that music had to feel realistic enough to be part of the world in amongst these real classic songs, but also just absurd enough where it was ridiculous and you could still imagine them being a success.
Yeah.
It's funny because the track you're talking about in the movie is called "Why Don't You Suck My Fucking Dick," which is like a massive Euro trance number. But I actually based the song on a track by a band called the Out Here Brothers, an early 90s dance track, which was called "I Wanna Fuck You in the Ass." And this was a huge club hit in Europe, which lots of records, this is 1993, lots of UK labels are trying to license it because it was really, really catchy. And I remember being at conversations going, yeah, we could do a radio edit, we can change the lyrics a bit. We can, and you're thinking, it's called "I Wanna Fuck You in the Ass." Are you out your mind? So when it came time to do the movie, I thought, well, yeah, we'll do something that mental, that crazy.
He's a brilliant character as well. The
Oh, God,
German.
Morris.
Oh, it's
He
brilliant.
literally
So
eats the
great.
scenery. He just goes berserk.
So great. Listen, thank you so much for your time. Really, really, really lovely time to chat to you. The film's out on the 6th of November. Kill Your Friends. Big thank you to name them all. It's to John, to Nicholas, to Owen, to all these guys here. Thank you so much.
Ed and Craig.
To Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Amazing.
along.
It's just I've never had so many people like here. It's like Craig, Ed, Owen, Nicholas, and John.
Thank you, Edith.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Cheers,
6th of November.